כי לקחתם נתתי לכם תורתי אל תעזבו את חיילי למחזיקים בה בתורה מאושר דרכיה דרכנו וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו כקדם.
Thank you, Gary. Oh my gosh,
Thank
this is
you.
so beautiful. First one is we're on chapter 10.
Okay.
Okay.
Then the Eternal One said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his courtiers, in order that I may display these my signs among them, and that you may recount in the hearing of your children, of your children's children, how I made a mockery of the Egyptian, and how I displayed my signs among them, in order that you may know that I am the Eternal." So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said to him, "Thus says the Eternal, the God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may worship me. For if you refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I will bring locusts on your territory. They shall cover the surface of the land, so that no one will be able to see the land. They shall devour the surviving remnant that was left to you after the hail, and they shall eat away all your trees that grow in the field. Moreover, they shall fill your palaces and the houses of all your courtiers and of all the Egyptians, something that neither your fathers nor fathers' fathers have seen from the day they appeared on earth to this day." With that, he turned and left Pharaoh's presence. Pharaoh's courtiers said to him, "How long shall this one be a snare to us? Let a delegation go to worship the Eternal their God. Are you not yet aware that Egypt is lost?" So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh, and he said to them, "Go, worship the Eternal your God. Who are the ones to go?" Moses replied, "We will all go, regardless of social station. We will go with our sons and daughters, our flocks and herds, for we must observe the Eternal's festival." But he said to them, "The Eternal be with you, the same as I mean, to let the dependents go with you. Clearly, you are bent on mischief. No, you gentlemen go and worship the Eternal, since that is what you want." And they were expelled from Pharaoh's presence. Then the Eternal One said to Moses, "Hold out your arm over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come upon the land of Egypt and eat up all the grasses in the land, whatever the hail has left." So Moses held out his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Eternal drove an east wind over the land all that day and all that night. And when morning came, the east wind had brought the locusts. Locusts invaded all the land of Egypt and settled within all the territory of Egypt in a thick mass. Never before has there been so many, nor will there ever be so many again. They hid all the land from the view, and the land was darkened, and they ate up all the grasses of the field and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left, so that nothing green was left of tree or grass of the field in the land of Egypt. Pharaoh hurriedly summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "I stand guilty before the Eternal your God and before you. Forgive my offense just this once, and plead with the Eternal your God that this death but be removed from me." So he left Pharaoh's presence and pleaded with the Eternal. The Eternal caused a shift to a very strong west wind, which lifted the locusts and hurled them into the Sea of Reeds. Not a single locust remained in all the territory of Egypt, but the Eternal stiffened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go.
Does this remind you of, does this sort of remind you of another story we just finished reading?
Yeah.
the Joseph one.
Yeah.
It's like the same idea of like, this thing, nope, that thing. I don't know. It gives you that same kind of pressure, right? That same it's holding those two tensions in air, right? It's incredible. This man in the box will now be quiet. Go ahead, keep going.
Then the Eternal One said to Moses, hold out your arm toward the sky, that there may be darkness upon the land of Egypt, a darkness that can be touched. Moses held out his arm toward the sky, and thick darkness descended upon all the land of Egypt for 3 days. People could not see one another, and for 3 days no one could move about, but all the Israelites enjoyed light in their dwellings. Pharaoh then summoned Moses and said, go, worship the Eternal. Only your flocks and your herds shall be left behind. Even your dependents may go with you. But Moses said, you yourself must provide us with sacrifices and burnt offerings to offer up to the Eternal our God. Our own livestock too shall go along with us. Not a hoof shall remain behind, for we must select from it for the worship of the Eternal our God, and we shall not know with what we are to worship the Eternal until we arrive there. But the Eternal stiffened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not agree to let them go. Pharaoh said to him, be gone from me. Take care not to see me again, for the moment you look upon my face, you shall die. And Moses replied, you have spoken rightly. I shall not see your face again. And the Eternal One said to Moses, I will bring but one more plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. After that, he shall let you go from here. Indeed, when he lets you go, he will drive you out of here, one and all. Tell the people to borrow, each man from his neighbor and each woman from hers, objects of silver and gold. The Eternal disposed the Egyptians favorably toward the people. Moreover, God's envoy Moses was much esteemed in the land of Egypt, among Pharaoh's courtiers and among the people. Moses said, thus says the Eternal, toward midnight I will go forth among the Egyptians, and every male firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne to the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the millstones, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And there shall be a loud cry in all the land of Egypt, such as has never been or will ever be again. But not a dog shall snarl at any of the Israelites, at human or beast, in order that you may know that the Eternal makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. Then all these courtiers of yours shall come down to me and bow low to me, saying, depart you and all the people who follow you. After that I will depart. And he left Pharaoh's presence in hot anger. Now the Eternal had said to Moses, Pharaoh will not heed you, in order that my marvels may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. Moses and Aaron had performed all these marvels before Pharaoh, but the Eternal had stiffened the heart of Pharaoh, so that he would not let the Israelites go from his land. The Eternal One said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, this month shall mark for you the beginning of the months. It shall be the first of the months of the year for you. Speak to the community leadership of Israel and say that on the 10th of this month, each of them shall take a lamb to a family, a lamb to a household. But if the household is too small for a lamb, let it share one with a neighbor who dwells nearby. In proportion to the number of persons, you shall contribute for the lamb, according to what each household will eat. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a yearling male. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep watch over it until the 14th day of this month, and all the assembled congregation of the Israelites shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they are to eat it. They shall eat the flesh that same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and with bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or cooked in any way with water, but roasted, head, legs, and entrails over the fire. You shall not leave any of it over until morning. If any of it is left until morning, you shall burn it. This is how you shall eat it, your loins girded.
Does anyone want to talk about the significance of this?
Yeah, I wonder why God is worrying so much about how they cook it. I mean,
It is
We
amazing.
get our custom of putting up the mezuzot beitacha on the doorpost of your house with the blood.
Oh, that's
Right.
that's a great.
was it?
you
I
can
sorry,
see.
I didn't hear what.
So Gary's pointing out the doorposts, the 2 doorposts. Put some of the blood.
Yep.
Put it
Right
on the
here,
2
al
doorposts.
mezuzot. Right.
Hamuzuzot. Where's that?
Al shetei hamezuzot. V'al hamishkov. On the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they are to eat it. And that's how God knew who the Israelis were, but that's why we put the mezuzah up on our doorposts.
That's incredible. And then also how it should be eating that night. Yeah, it's very, very. Also, this lamb without blemish. I mean, I love those that image of the perfect lamb, right? That's like the perfect one of the flock for God. And I always think about that so much. It's like, why does God want the best? Why does God want the best? Like the one that doesn't have one little scar.
Because he's the most. That means that you're placing him above everything else.
Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful answer. I love that answer. That's a great
Plus,
one.
God doesn't want chazarai. God wants the best. God created the best, so
That's right. And then you think about it too, when you're raising all these lambs, you're thinking, okay, which one could go to God? Which one's going to be the best one, And then and I always say, like, and then because then you're really trying to get you're trying to raise something that, wow, all right. That you're trying to raise something really beautiful, right? You're trying to make it like, this is going to be the best lamb. And that brings up all the levels of the lambs, I think, right? All the different levels of the crops or the sheep or everything. If you think about it that way, if you're giving the best to God, the second best goes to you and your families, and you would be very healthy. You'd still have this wonderful, healthy food. I love this whole concept is great. Yeah, you want God to have the best. You want and be first. I love what Annie was saying. I think it's all there's so many ways to look at this. It's great.
I feel a little sorry for the Egyptians because it sounds like they were, telling Pharaoh to let the people go. And then because God wasn't finished showing all of the miracles, he hardened his heart against it. But like they seemed like they got it long before Pharaoh got it. So I feel a little bit sorry for them because it sounded like they got it. The Egyptians got it.
Now, there's a midrash here that I read about. The Israelites were worried because slaughtering a Paschal lamb, the lamb was one of the gods, one of the major gods of Egypt.
Oh.
And they said, you want us to sacrifice a lamb that's one of their gods. They're going to come after us. And God said, and in the same breath, they knew that during this time, ultimately, the firstborn was going to be of the Egyptians were also going to die. And the angel of death was to go over those people who had the marking on their door where the mezuzah would have been in later years. And God said, no, they have to see that their God means nothing. And even though we slew them and ate them, their God, it could not prevent the death of their firstborn. So God was here making a statement to the Israelites and to the Egyptians by saying, you can have your gods, but it doesn't mean anything. And you can have your gods, but it can't protect your family.
Wow.
That's heavy stuff. And
Real
also,
heavy stuff.
yeah. And also, and so they did have like a lamb. The lamb was their god. Also was the locust their god, and different, all these things. The frogs.
Cats, yeah.
Is that what the plagues kind of represent? All the different gods of Egypt? Is that?
I don't know. I just know this story that I read about.
Yeah.
You've got me preparing now. That's scary.
But also, I think if we could read into it a little bit, it seems that for whatever reason, it seems like there's a sacrifice that needs to be made here, right? And so it seems, this is just my own opinion, and it seems that God is going to do something big, and instead, I mean, yeah, he has the blood on the doorpost as a sign, but also so that if he's asking for a lamb, though, right, a lamb instead of the firstborn son or of the Israelites, do you think this is taking a making a substitution a little bit? I don't know. That
Maybe.
you know, that it feels to me like it almost feels to me like God's just saying everyone's going to pay somehow, you know. And I mean, I hate to put words in God's mouth, but I don't know, maybe. But it's so important, and the fact that we have the Passover and the Passover meal and the questions and all the symbolic food that we eat, and how weird. I mean, because it's interesting that Annie, Gary, and Alba and I were there on 2019, and then the next year it had to be, there wasn't any like communal Passover, right? It was, I mean, it was on Zoom, wasn't it? Or I don't.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I was on Zoom.
Wow. I don't know. Such a strange time. But this is, it's so, I mean, all this stuff is just, it makes it so incredible just to think about, and to think about what God is doing and the messages that God's conveying. And even though it sounds really harsh, there is some, I feel like this is all lessons, right? I mean, this is,
Mm-hmm.
and I always go back to the issue when Moses sends out the spies to scout out the promised land first, and they come back, and then it's like, oh, they could have gone in, but then we wouldn't have that whole lesson if they did go in. We wouldn't have the 40 years and the lesson of the 40 years and the importance of, anyway. Does anyone want to pick up, or anybody else? I don't want to cut anybody off. Andy, you want to start at 11?
Okay. This is how you shall eat it: your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. It is a Passover offering to the Eternal. For that night I will go through the land of Egypt and strike down every male firstborn in the land of Egypt, both human and beast, and I will mete out punishments to all the gods of Egypt, I the Eternal. And the blood on the houses where you are staying shall be a sign for you. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, so that no plague will destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be to you one of remembrance. You shall celebrate it as a festival to the Eternal throughout the ages. You shall celebrate it as an institution for all time. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the very first day you shall remove leaven from your houses, for whoever eats leavened bread from the first day to the seventh day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. You shall celebrate a sacred occasion on the first day, and a sacred occasion on the seventh day. No work at all shall be done on them, only what every person is to eat. That alone may be prepared for you. You shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on this very day I brought your ranks out of the land of Egypt. You shall observe this throughout the ages as an institution for all time. In the first month, from the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. No leaven shall be found in your houses for 7 days. For whoever eats what is leavened That person, whether a stranger or a citizen of the country, shall be cut off from the community of Israel. You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your settlements, you shall eat unleavened bread.
Wow.
Moses
Can we
then some. Oh, you want me to stop? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering. My question is this now I know that there was a reason why they had unleavened bread, and that was because when they were leaving Egypt, right? There was no time for the bread to rise. Was that part of it? Is that
But they haven't left yet.
they haven't left yet, right? So did it
And
take 7 days to get out? That's my question.
and the other issue that I don't understand, this is January 18th. We've got to wait 2 months from Passover.
Yeah, why are we reading this now?
Why are we reading this now? I mean, I never understood that. He talks about matzah. He talks about leaving. He talks about what you need to do, but you could wait a couple of months.
It's true, and I forgot how as Cynthia was pointing out, it's very specific. Everything's so specific. The leavened bread, you shall not eat it. You shall take it all out of your. And I'm almost like, wow, this is the first time I really realized how intense it is. You know, like this is a big deal, right? I mean, it's pretty good, and we're in January, right? It's so funny.
Moses then summoned all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Go, pick out lambs for your families and slaughter the Passover offering. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and apply some of the blood that is in the basin to the lintel and to the 2 doorposts. None of you shall go outside the door of your house until morning. For the Eternal, when going through to smite the Egyptians, will see the blood on the lintel and the 2 doorposts, and the Eternal will pass over the door and not let the destroyer enter and smite your home. You shall observe this as an institution for all time, for you and for your descendants. And when you enter the land that the Eternal will give you, as promised, you shall observe this rite. And when your children ask you, 'What do you mean by this rite?' you shall say, 'It is the Passover sacrifice to the Eternal, who passes over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt when smiting the Egyptians, but saved our houses.'" I like the word smite. Those assembled then bowed in low in homage, and the Israelites went out and did so, just as the Eternal had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. In the middle of the night, the Eternal struck down all the male firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh arose in the night with all his courtiers and all the Egyptians, because there was a loud cry in Egypt, for there was no house where there was not someone dead. He summoned Moses and Aaron in the night and said, "Up, depart from among my people, you and the Israelites with you. Go worship the Eternal as you said. Take also your flocks and your herds as you said, and be gone. And may you bring a blessing upon me also." The Egyptians urged the people on, impatient to have them leave the country, for they said, "We shall all be dead." So the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls wrapped in their cloaks upon their shoulders. The Israelites had done Moses' bidding and borrowed from the Egyptians objects of silver and gold and clothing. And the Eternal had disposed the Egyptians favorably toward the people, and they let them have their requests. Thus they stripped the Egyptians.
Wow, what are your thoughts? Whoa. Whew. I liked what Pharaoh was, last time they saw each other, Pharaoh said, "I'm going to kill you if I see you again." Right? And now it's a complete opposite. It's like, just get out of here. And oh, by the way, bring a blessing upon me. I mean, imagine how scared this guy is at this point. I mean, it's so sad. He has to deal with all this death and destruction. And then, I mean, he wouldn't dare kill him at this point. He realizes now, I think, that it's over. The show's over. It's over. It's good. Go. Get out of here. Oh my gosh. What a whole, wow. Wow, wow, wow.
I don't understand. It says that they borrowed these things, silver, gold, and clothing. They went to the Egyptians after all that and borrowed the stuff.
Well, I read somewhere that the Hebrew word can be, it could be borrowed, it could be to take. I think there's three different. I think there was three different ways to interpret that word. I don't know, Bracha, do you know the word?
No, but I do have a thought on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so usually when God helps us is through nature. It doesn't show so much, but we still see the salvation.
Mhm.
Here, it was really Hashem's outstretched hand openly, Hashem doing everything so that we could get out of the slavery in Egypt. And this is why we have the Pesach nights where we have to talk about it. And this is why we have to teach our children. And this is why Hashem likes for us to talk about the miracle of getting out of Egypt, because it was an open thing Hashem did for us and not a veiled through nature thing the way it normally happens.
Yeah.
You know, I give a talk on the Bible and public health. I've given that talk a couple of times. And as you go up to a little further, what we read, God was really careful about saying something that apparently didn't mean much, and that is, put your shoes on. Don't touch the water. Stay away from the water. And then you draw that to modern day understanding is that part of the world, especially Egypt, and especially around places like Aswan, were loaded with schistosomiasis, which is the second most deadly parasitic disease in the world, malaria and then schistosomiasis. So I always thought that's very interesting. Maybe that's the way he killed them all, through this parasitic disease, which took maybe a few weeks. But he said, put your shoes on, don't touch the water, use hyssop, which is an herb that many people take, a minty flavored herb, if that was the same herb. But there are so many interesting modern interpretations of what we're seeing here. Doesn't mean anything different, because it still ends up in the same place with the firstborns dying. But if you think about it, why is he saying this stuff about put your shoes on? Because the his schistosomiasis gets in through your feet. It burrows circadia. When you step in the water, these parasites get in through your feet and into your body. And anytime you touch this water, you can die very quickly.
Wow.
Very interesting.
So the shoe thing is a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. I think
See,
that was that right after when they were eating the lamb, they were supposed to put their feet. Yeah, put your sandals on your feet. That's it right there.
Because if you step in a puddle, you're dead.
Wow.
Wow.
That's incredible. Was there something else about like how the Egyptians slept versus the Hebrews? Was there, I don't know, I had heard something like this too. Did you hear that, Gary?
Dr. Mike had mentioned that the firstborn they slept like lower down, or was it elevated? It was one or the other.
Right.
Like underneath the house, like, or the way their homes were built. And
That's
it
what I
worked
heard.
out that whoever was either lower or under, like something in the air that
Yeah, it might
rose
have been a
above,
gas. It might have been a poison gas that was
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting ideas. Interesting. And it definitely, it's great to have you, Dr. Ed, to give us some of that science background. That's
Yeah.
fascinating stuff. So Cynthia, just as you were asking about the silver and the gold, I'm just looking through here underneath in the commentary section. Israel, so on number 36, it says Israel was seen to have been in the legal position of the slave wife who, upon being expelled from the house, was owed compensation. I didn't know that. And then it says, in our time, some similarly proposed that restitution be made in the United States to Black Americans as the descendants of slaves. So that's interesting. I didn't know there was a legal precedent for that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'll have to look more into that.
Where do you want to start?
37.
The Israelites journeyed from Ramses to Sukkot. About 600,000 fighting men on foot, aside from non-combatants. Moreover, a mixed multitude went up with them, and very much livestock, both flocks and herds. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough that they had taken out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, since they had driven out of Egypt and could not delay, nor had they prepared any provisions for themselves. The length of times that the Israelites lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of 430th year, to the very day, all the ranks of the Eternal departed from the land of Egypt. That was for the Eternal a night of vigil to bring them out of the land of Egypt. That same night is the Eternal's one of vigil for all the children of Israel throughout the ages. The Eternal One said to Moses and Aaron, "This is the law of the Passover offering. No foreigner shall eat of it, but any householder's purchased male slave may eat of it once he has been circumcised. No bound or hired laborer shall eat of it. It shall be eaten in one house. You shall not take any of the flesh outside of the house, now shall you break a bone of it. The whole community of Israel shall offer it. If a male stranger who dwells with you would offer the Passover to the Eternal, all his males must be circumcised. Then he shall admit it to offer it. He shall then be a citizen of the country, but no uncircumcised man may eat of it. There shall be one law for the citizen and for the stranger who dwells among you." And all the Israelites did so, as the Eternal had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. That very day, the Eternal freed the Israelites from the land of Egypt, troop by troop.
What does the foreigner mean? Just not an Israelite? Is every other group at that point a foreigner?
Good question. I would
I don't
guess.
know.
Yeah. Where do we see that word, the foreigner?
It's a couple. It was there a couple of times.
Yeah.
Remember, these people weren't Jewish. These people were Israelites. This was a
Right.
national group. This really wasn't a religious group.
Ah,
Remember that the rank and file here, they didn't know much about the Eternal One. I mean, he's
Right.
talking to Aaron and he's talking to Aaron and Moses. They don't know what he's saying. There's no
Okay.
internet.
Mhm.
So who are the foreigners?
I don't know. It's probably
don't
the
know.
Egyptians or the Edomites or Ammonites or all of and anyone who wasn't an Israelite, right? I mean, that's what I would guess. No foreigners. But then it says the slave, a purchased slave, may eat of it once he has been circumcised. Or so I'm guessing a foreigner is a male who has not been circumcised. That's my educated guess.
Pull down your pants and have dinner.
Yeah, right. Yeah, really.
I mean, really.
Is it a buddy system? What is the honor system? Are you sure? Do we need? That's true. Rocco, do you want to pick it up at 13:1?
Yes, the Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, consecrate to me every male firstborn, human and beast, the first male issue of every womb among the Israelites is mine. And Moses said to the people, remember this day on which you went free from Egypt, the house of bondage, how the Eternal freed you from it with a mighty hand. No leavened bread shall be eaten. You go free on this day in the month of Aviv. So when the Eternal has brought you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivitites.
So when the Eternal has brought you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which was sworn to your fathers to be given you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you shall observe in this month the following practice. 7 days. Now here we go again. Just to drive it home. If it hasn't been driven home enough, Cynthia, why are we doing this again? Okay, 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. This is amazing because they haven't even crossed the ocean yet. They haven't had the seas part yet, and all this is still as they're going out, right? 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a festival of the Eternal. Throughout the 7 days, unleavened bread shall be eaten. No leavened bread shall be found with you, and no leavened bread should be found in all your territory. And you shall explain to your children on that day, it is because of what the Eternal did for me when I went free from Egypt. Now that's interesting to me too, because that's like isn't that like the second time we hear a child, the reference to a child, which it brings up to the 4 questions in Passover? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
That's
right.
That's
and you shall
incredible.
explain to your child on that day. Yes.
Why don't you keep going, Bracha?
And this shall serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder on your forehead, in order that the teaching of the Eternal may be in your mouth, that with a mighty hand the Eternal freed you from Egypt. You shall keep this institution at a set time, year to year. And when the Eternal has brought you into the land of the Canaanites, as God swore to you and to your fathers, and has given it to you, you shall set apart for the Eternal every first issue of the womb, every male firstling that your cattle drop shall be, every male firstling that your cattle drop shall be the Eternal's. But every firstling as you shall redeem with a sheep. And if you do not redeem it, you must break its neck. And you must redeem every male firstborn among your children. And when in time to come, a child of yours asks you, saying, what does this mean?
Whoops.
You shall reply, it was with a mighty hand that the Eternal brought us out from Egypt, the house of bondage. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Eternal slew every male firstborn in the land of Egypt, the firstborn of both human and beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Eternal every first male issue of the womb, but redeem every male firstborn among my children.
Wow. There's so much here, isn't there? I mean, we talk about, Gary, what is it? The thing,
the firstborn.
The firstborn. Yeah, well, we heard of Samuel, right? And in the last one, and about you should wrap it around your arm and around your head. The tefillin. Yeah,
Tefillin.
Is this the first time we hear about tefillin, or a reference to it?
Yeah, I think so. And you know, the morning before Passover, that day before Passover is called the fast of the firstborn. And even today, firstborn males, which I happen to be one, are supposed to fast. But that gets kind of complicated because you have to celebrate the first Seder. So you have to go the beginning of that first day on the fast of the firstborn to what they call a siyum, or a study. And if you do that, you're given a pass and you can go to the first Seder.
Okay.
Mm.
But the first day of Passover, or the morning of the first evening of Passover, you're supposed to fast.
And
Wow.
I wonder, is that also one of the reasons that a firstborn, they have a meal, firstborn, isn't, you have to buy back from God? Is that, they call it Pete and a Ben? Is that?
Yeah,
I
at the
wonder if
beginning
that-
of that too. Yeah, that's a great. Who said that? I can't see you.
Cynthia.
Cynthia, that was great.
That's great. I mean, because the whole ritual of Passover is all here. That's the beauty. That's what I like about the Jewish holidays. That they're from a specific place, and you know exactly what it's about. I think our Christian holidays are kind of like, yeah, let's do this, let's do that, but it's incredible. I feel like everyone should be celebrating Passover, right? I mean, without this, where would we be? I don't know.
It's the most widely celebrated Jewish holiday amongst everybody, kind of, you know,
Wow.
because it represents liberation, or metaphorically, the fact that no matter where you are, there's always a better place where you can be.
That's great. So this is the third question, right? How many questions in Passover? Is it 4 questions?
For,
Yeah,
yeah.
And then the answers.
And then the answers. It was the
And
mighty
the
hand.
4 types of children:
Right.
the wise, the
Yeah.
wicked.
But that's way
This-
late.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's in the Haggadah, but
That's excellent.
But you know, Mike, when we were walking the streets of Jerusalem, I really thought about this stuff. You know, it's all here.
Exactly. Yeah, that is the beauty of the Holy Land, right? It's enchanting because you can there's I mean, you know, the Torah is history, the Bible is history, but it's also working on a different level of this relationship with God, relationship with the land, and how important that is. Definitely for the Jewish people, for the Hebrews, for the Israelites, but for the entire world. That's the thing that just totally blows my mind. It's like it covers everything. I mean, the Christians, it's important for the Christians, it's important for the Muslims, it's important obviously for the Jews, and it's just like, how does this happen? How could it be so enriching? How could it be so important? And I mean, it's just so fascinating, and it makes you absolutely, when you're in the Holy Land, it makes you stop and wonder about everything, about every last thing of history, of definitely the start of Jacob's sons, of Jacob and Esau. How did Jacob get the birthright? How important that was compared to the sons and Joseph, how they get into Egypt, how they get taken out of Egypt, and then end up in the land after the wandering in the desert, they had a civil war in the desert with the golden calf. I mean, it's just, wow, phenomenal stuff. And I think that brings us to the very last bit of this portion, which is verse 16. So you have that last answer. What does this mean? It was the mighty hand of the Eternal that brought us out of Egypt, the house of bondage. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, that Eternal slew every male firstborn in the land of Egypt, the firstborn of both human and beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Eternal every first male issue of the womb, but redeem every male firstborn among my children. And that's incredible. And then the last line, it says, and so it shall be as a sign upon your hand and as a symbol on your forehead, that with a mighty hand the Eternal freed us from Egypt. And that again is another reference to the tefillin.
yeah.
But it's still, this hasn't really been established yet, or is this the establishment of that ritual? Do you think?
Probably the establishment, because they haven't been given the Torah yet.
translated as tefillin frontlet. Yeah.
I'm gonna sound really dumb here, but what's tefillin?
Hmm.
It's a little that you put. There's one that you put like around your head. It has like these straps, and then there's one that goes on your arm, and you have to wrap it around your
To fill in. Yeah.
your index finger on, what is it, your left hand or your right hand? I forget.
Yeah.
It has to be wrapped a certain way, and it has to be wrapped like the letter shin on your hand.
Oh,
The
really?
way it wraps
Yeah.
around. Yeah. I used to do it when I was around the time of my bar mitzvah.
It's done every morning, except on Shabbat, by Orthodox Jews. They put
Shalom
it on
said
their
he always
head,
does it.
they put it on their hand, they put it on their fingers, and it spells out the word of God, Shaddai, Shin,
Oh,
Daled, Yud. And you saw them, Mike Bodo, along the streets, the Orthodox, stopping people and said, "Come here, put on tefillin." Do you remember that?
I think I do. Yeah, I
There
think I
were
do.
men there. They were about as close to missionaries as you can, Jewish missionaries as you can get. And the
Mhm.
missionaries were not towards non-Jews, they were towards Jews. Come on, do this. Try it.
wow.
Yeah. So it's yeah, it's incredible. That's right. They evangelize just to other Jews, right? And
Correct.
not yeah,
Yeah.
because that was that I was asked that question quite a bit. Are you Jewish? Not really. Maybe. Not really. You got to be honest, right?
Jewish leaning.
Well, it's really, it's an interesting, we see in every city in the world, and everybody knows I'm pretty secular. I grew up in a very Orthodox trained world, and where I had to go to Hebrew school 5 days a week for 6 years.
Wow.
I'm pretty darn secular for a lot of reasons, and I talk about that was president quite often. But yeah, it's, you go to a Chabad, which is a sect of Judaism. They're found everywhere, all over the place. I mean, when I was in Thailand, there were Chabads. There were Chabads. My brother went to a Chabad in Cambodia, every country of the world. And and their job is to bring Judaism to Jews. And it's the same thing here. It's the same, and it has to, for Italy. I've been to Chabads all over the world just to see what they were like. In Thailand, I went to the Chabad, and it was in the penthouse of an ultra modern skyscraper. Is where the Friday night service was. You went up to the elevator, it stopped at every floor till you got to the top. And when you walked in, there was this magnificent, magnificent floor. And it was a Chabad synagogue. And I said, there must have been 300 people, 200 people there maybe. And I said, wow, there's 200 people here in Thailand. And he said to me, well, go down the street, the big ones down there, the 800 or 900. So you really don't know. In Italy, the Chabad is in the ghetto. Is in the ghetto in Venice, the real ghetto. Why they call it the ghetto? That's the Italian word for the area where the Jews were, and they actually hold it in the ghetto.
כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזבו. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותום המיושר תרחם דרכנו. וכל נתיבותיך שם Yamenu, Kadesh Yamenu, Kadesh.